Let's talk. Not that long ago, I encountered something I have never experienced myself in the SCA before. Now, that obviously leads to the question, what am I talking about? And I want to give you a little bit of history before I just blurt this out, because it needs some context. I started playing in the then Shire of Moonshadow, which is mundanely Stillwater, Oklahoma. And up until that, I started playing in September of 1997, and up until November of 2020, that was the only group I've ever lived in. Now, I moved in November of 2020 to the Barony of Wiesenfeuer, which is mundanely Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. So, between being in a shire, which then became a province, I have always lived and played under seneschal and officer corps leadership. That's how a province or a shire runs. Is the seneschal and the officer corps make all the decisions, lead the group, inspire. That is how that's how the group is run and administered. Now, moving to Wiesenfeuer was a different experience because Wiesenfeuer is a barony, and we have nobles who are part of that leadership mechanism. So, at our last populace meeting, the Baronesses of Wiesenfeuer, Maureen and Beatrix, or B as we call her, stood up at the end of the meeting, and they said something that every barony is going to hear many times in its existence, but for my wife and I here, this was the first time we had ever heard this in a way that it would affect us directly, and they announced that it was time for them to step down. The changeover process was beginning, and a new pair of landed nobles would be selected for the Barony of Wiesenfeuer. And I wanted to take a moment, and I wanted to share with my audience, both for the moment and for future audiences and future people who may experience this, a little bit about the publicly talked about part of the baronial selection process. Now, let me start off by saying, not only do I not know everything, the majority of things that go into this I do not know, and no, I do not know. I have never sat a baronial throne. I have never had a long-term working relationship with someone while they were a sitting noble. So for all that I do know about nobility and all that I do know about its role within the local group and the overall kingdom, there are still a lot of things about being a baron that I don't know. So I just want to preface everything I'm saying going forward with that fact. But here are the things that I do know. The process has begun. As of that meeting, it was announced that there would be a deadline of the 1st of next month. So that was said, I think it was a week ago, and it's February. So the 1st of March was the deadline for letters of intent. Now, what is a letter of intent? A letter of intent is a letter stating your intention to put your name forward as a candidate for the next baron or baroness. That is the first part of the process. The requirements are, as I understand them, fairly straightforward. You must effectively be eligible to be an officer. You must be a resident of that group, and you must be eligible to be an officer. So you have to be a paid member, and you have to reside either within, in Odstior, it is either within the group or within an adjoining zip code of that group. There's kind of a gray area around the group that Those aren't zip codes that necessarily belong to the group, but they are adjoining zip codes. And that may have changed, but nonetheless, there is a physical location aspect to the requirement. There's not a minimum time in requirement. There is not a requirement for having held an office. The bar to enter is very low. You have to be a member, or you have to be able to get membership very quickly, and you must live in or near the group. Now, as to what goes into the letter of intent, that's actually a bit of a process that I'm still learning about. I'm still reading past letters of intent. I'm still researching it, mostly for my own idle curiosity. But your letter of intent states your case, as it were, of why you feel like you would be a good candidate to be the next noble. You, either as an individual or you as part of a pair. We say baronial couple, but the fact of the matter is that there are a number of landed nobles who are not couples. They are friends who come from separate households. There are several examples, both historically and in the SCA, of siblings actually sitting as co-nobles. And there are, of course, romantically involved couples. There are dating couples, long-term dating couples, or married couples who have sat baronial thrones. So all of those are possibilities. Is it possible to sit a baronial throne as a single noble? Yes, that does happen. Those are rare. It is generally preferred that two people sit the thrones, but we'll get to case-by-case basis in a minute. Can there be more than two? No. I believe the options are one or two, at least in Ansteora. If there is a triad option anywhere, I am unaware of it, and I believe society law says one or two only. So you have the letters of intent. The Crown will then review those letters of intent, because that is who it is to, the Crown and the Kingdom Seneschal. And the letters of intent are published in a newsletter, so all the populace is welcome to read them. The next part of the process in this summary, there are more details to it, of course, is the Crown will do interviews. And the Crown will sit down and talk with each candidate or candidate couple and ask them questions. And this is very much analogous to a job interview. I don't think calling it a job interview is inaccurate in the least. This is a job, and it is something that you are interviewed to do. And most of the nobles I know will hold this position for 2 or 3 or 4 years, so it's a commitment. After the interviews are done, or possibly concurrent with them or in proximity to them, there is also the baronial polling, and that is where the populace is invited to a meeting where they are given a polling form with a series of questions on it, which will ask them to select whoever they, their preference of who they think the next noble should be of the candidates. Now let me be clear, and I've said this in other videos, this is not a vote. This is not a binding vote. The Crown is not beholden to the results of that poll, and more importantly, the results of that poll are not public knowledge. Now sometimes those polls have been released and publicized. So many fraction of people voted for this person, so many fraction of people voted for that person. But that is at the whim of the Crown. In the majority of polls that I have witnessed, the results are never released. There is never any concrete statement about who garnered the popular vote. The sole purpose for that vote is to apprise the Crown and the greater officers of state of the populace's opinion on the matter. Now, does that carry a tremendous amount of weight? Yes, of course it does. It's in the Crown's best interest to select a candidate who the populace will work with. But I do want to make sure I don't leave anyone with the impression this is some sort of binding vote, because it's not. Now, the next phase is the actual selection, and that ultimately is left to the Crown. In Onsteora, it is my understanding that there are very, very few restrictions or requirements placed on the Crown about the selection process. The Crown has the option to select anyone. The Crown may say select no one. They have the option of going, none of these candidates are acceptable. And they could appoint a vicar, which is effectively a temporary baron or baroness, or they could appoint a vicar and vicaress, whose job is to hold the barony in trust for a very brief term while different candidates are selected. There are options. The Crown has the option. Some options are rather extraordinary. The Crown has the option, at least on Steora, to not select anyone if they feel they have to. But generally speaking, the overwhelming majority of the time, after much deliberation and much private conversation, an announcement will be made publicly. Usually it is at court at an event, though there are some circumstances where it's now done online during an online court or an online meeting of high import. And they will announce who the next couple will be. And in my experience, there is no pre-announcement. The couple in question does not know. I've been sitting next to 3 different couples at 3 different points in time when the announcements were read, and I've been sitting next to 2 of them, and 2 of the pollings were not the ones that got selected, and there was that process of, they had to process. It wasn't me, let the adrenaline run out, just, it's an emotional process. It doesn't matter how pious or greedy you are, everyone is on the edge of their seats at that moment, because it is a very important moment, and this decision is going to dictate where you are in the importance of that moment. Because even if you aren't selected, you're still a member of the barony, and you still have to be part of the process moving forward when the new baron and baroness step up, which that segues into the kind of the last phase, and there will be a baronial investiture. Now, the actual investiture, that's the name for the ceremony, and there is a stepping down. That is where the current baron and baroness will open court. They will address their last bits of business. They will traditionally do a lot of ceremonial stuff. They will release the baronial guard. Anyone who is sworn in service to them or sworn to the barony or has made any pledges to the barony will be released of their oaths. I've seen a lot of examples where the baronial guard will be directed. Your service has been good. I leave you in the charge of your captain until another leader is appointed, and so forth. It's important though, because each of these relationships are usually have immense emotional significance to the people involved in them. So this is a very important time, and a great many times it's very emotional. I've seen a huge number of baronial stepping downs where people step away crying, and not that they are sad that the baron and baroness are stepping down per se. It's just it's an innately emotional time, both good and bad. It's very emotional. So the stepping down ceremony is a very important part of the ceremony, and it is emotionally loaded. And now I've seen this go a couple different ways. I've seen it immediately where they will then proceed to the investiture, and I've seen times where the court will then close and the day will go on, and then at night they will do the investiture. Now understand that for baronial stepping down and baronial investiture, the crown has to be there to oversee the activity, because the barons and baronesses of the kingdom serve the crown. They are the crown's representatives and ambassadors and so forth to that local group. So the crown will be in presence. The crown will be overseeing the entire process. And the last thing the baron and baroness will do will be to stand before the crown and and asked to be, however the ceremony details are laid out, asked to be released from their oaths of oaths to the court. And then you move to the investiture court, and that is where the process is reversed. And I have seen very, very straightforward investitures where the new baron or baroness or baronesses or couple or however you want to phrase it, the new nobles will process up in short order with a small entourage, and they will go through the necessary oaths, and they will hold the ceremony. And it's very brief and it's very formal. I've seen 2 examples where the ceremony was everything it needed to be, and it was a very imposing ceremony, but it was very clear that no one up there wanted this drug out longer than it needed to be, which under those circumstances I think was appropriate. And I've also seen some investiture ceremonies which were just the height of spectacle. The costuming, the display, the pageantry, the ambiance, the escort in, heralds singing as they walked in, great theatrics with the oaths, great theatrics with the new oaths of fealty, the new oaths of service to the baron and baroness. And in those circumstances, those were exactly what those needed to be. So I have seen investitures take very, very short periods of time. I've seen them take very, very long periods of time. I don't think it is wrong to compare them to a wedding ceremony in that they need to be tailored to the needs and expectations of the group in that point in time. Now, there are some times where an entire event is the investiture. The whole point of the event is to create a venue for a stepping down and an investiture, and there really is only peripheral activity across the day to kind of frame that. And there are also plenty of times where investitures are done as part of a larger event. So you may hear an event or hear about an event in the past that was called investiture or such and such investiture. Or you may hear that there was an investiture at X event. Both of those are accurate. There's something of a dark underside to this story. You will, if you play for any period of time, you will hear the 2 phrases. You will hear hat race and you will hear hat fight. So let's start with hat race. With this, if we want to be blunt about it, becoming a landed noble in the SCA has definitive aspects of popularity contest, job interview, and kind of appointed political office. The selection process is very autocratic. Like I said, this is not a vote. This is the singular decision of the crown. So there's definitely an aspect of self-promotion. There is an aspect of the candidates have to make an argument for why they are best for this. Why they are good candidates. And I have seen examples where that went spectacularly well. I've seen examples where all of the candidates made compelling, strong, solid arguments for their position. They said, I am good at this, I am strongest in this, I can contribute this, I can bring this to the barony. And even in the friendliest terms, it's competitive. It's if I am competing if I am trying to become a baron and someone else is trying to become a baron, even if we're best friends and even if we coordinate our answers, at the end of the day, we're both trying to give the best answer. So you will hear the phrase hat race in those times. And that is not inaccurate. And like any race, that race can be very cordial, can be very friendly. And I have seen numerous examples where literally a minute after the next nobles are decided, the other 2 or 3 couples are all coming together going, okay, so we didn't get it, here's what we need to do. You're going to make sure we support this office, and you still have this office, so tell me what you need so we can keep that going. And I'm really thinking we need to tackle this project, and I don't want to overload the new Baron and Baroness, so I'm going to do this. I mean, they're right back at it. The fact that they are not the new nobles, for them it's like, okay, we got plenty of other stuff we need to do that doesn't require a brass hat. I'm just going to be honest with you, there is the flip side, and that's hat fight. There are some examples in the SCA where the contest to be the next landed noble frankly got ugly. With any social-based competition, it has the possibilities for all of the expected ugliness, rumor mongering, backstabbing, criticisms, sometimes just, sometimes not, and it's as ugly and destructive as you think it would be. I'm not going to say that that's likely, because it's not. I've been playing a quarter century, and I've seen a number of baronial selections, and the majority of them the overwhelming majority of them ranged from relatively neutral to outstandingly coordinated and positive. I have seen one where all of the candidate couples got together and formed a united front to say out loud in these words, we are all trying for this, and when one of these couples is selected, the rest of us are promising to stay here and still play with the barony and still vigorously support whoever gets it. So I don't want this to sound like I'm painting a doom and gloom picture for the process, but I also don't think it is fair to my viewers to just gloss over the fact that, as with any human endeavor, sometimes emotion and ambition cast a ill color on the conversation, and that is, when those happen, it's called a hat fight, at least around where I am at. That is the legacy of those words, is hat fight. Now, that's going to lead to the next question, especially people local to me who see this video. Am I concerned about this baronial selection becoming a hat fight? And the answer is no. The elements needed to really make things mean-spirited don't have the type of foothold here that I feel like they would need. There are people in our group who would be very critical of each other, but they are also the very same type of relationships that are going to be critical in the right ways. When I have something I need to say to someone that's critical, I'm going to pull them aside and I'm going to say it to their face. And I know most of the people in the barony are in varying degrees on that same type of relationship. Are there people in the barony who don't care for each other? Yeah, of course there are. We're a barony. That's a fairly healthy population base. We can't all be best friends. But we also have a relationship where it's like, okay, I may not like the person, but we're still going to talk when we're at events. We're still going to be social. We're just not going to go bend over backwards to spend time with each other. Those are signs of a healthy barony. Those are signs of healthy, mature relationships. And a healthy, mature relationship is the antithesis of the type of negative scenario you see with bad baronial selection. So before anyone asks, before anyone worries, before anyone thinks I'm trying to allude to that here, no. I honestly and truly think that this selection process is going to be quite the adventure. It's going to be very emotional. I know it's going to be emotional. It's people pouring their heart and souls into something. There's going to be emotions. Are there going to be tears? Yeah, probably. It's probably going to be a couple of people that just need to walk in a corner and let the emotions flow out. And okay, I'm good with this. But I think it's going to be a positive experience, and I think everyone who I think is going to wind up applying is going to walk away from this, no matter what, going, we gave it a good go, and for whoever gets selected, we're going to support them. And for the rest of us, we still got a barony that needs our help and wants us as part of it. But, you know, if you in another barony somewhere else in the known world, you're going to hear the phrase, you might hear the phrase hat fight or something else. And I would just as soon be honest with you and say, yeah, sometimes things have a dark side, and that is a possibility that, frankly, any social engagement involving more than 3 people needs to be aware of. So just call it what it is. And really, as much as I wish I could put a footnote on this, some grandiose poetic summary, we're still in the beginning process of this, and this is the first time that I have ever been part of a baronial selection process. Now, my wife and I are not putting in letters of intent. We have no interest in applying at this point in time to become landed nobles, but we're both officers within the barony, so we are. No matter who gets selected, we're going to be part of the team that helps the next nobles step up and assume the role of landed nobles. And our opinions of the barony and of the candidates are going to be among those that are considered. So we're still figuring out our part in this. This is all very new. I mean, I've known the details of it for years, but now I'm experiencing it for the first time. So this is, in its own interesting way, new to me. I'm looking forward to it, though. I know a lot of the couples who are applying, and this is going to be I really feel like this is going to be an awesome chapter in baronial history, and I look forward to helping make it awesome. So it's an adventure, and I will hopefully keep you guys appraised of how it proceeds forward. But for the moment, I just wanted to share that. I wanted to share what I knew, what I don't know, and add to the conversation of what is the baronial selection process. I'll see you all at the next event. Goodbye and God bless.